Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Nana. Good evening, Tam. Good evening, Tia, Matt, Catherine, Susan, Rodney, Nikki, Matt, Richard, Deborah, Wanda, Retha, Kathy. How's you guys all doing? Hopefully, you guys are all stocked up and ready to go with everything going on here today. In this day and age, it's going crazy out there. The world has gone crazy. We can all admit that, I'm sure. But it is definitely getting bad as inflation has become a tipping point for most consumers. Retailers have benefited from higher prices up to this point, but now, as inflation tops 8%, experts say some consumers are starting to change their shopping habits. Despite several months of rising inflation and higher prices cropping up on grocery shelves, even Albertsons hasn't yet seen a meaningful change in consumer behavior. During the company's fourth week of earnings call on Tuesday, it said shoppers' spending habits remained steadfast amidst rising prices, highlighting the grocery store's growing organic sales chain and emphasis to the point. We are seeing our consumer is very strong. We're not seeing meaningful trends downward yet. That same morning, however, the Bureau of Labor Statistics released its monthly inflation report showing grocery prices had risen 10% over the past year, while the overall consumer price index has raised 8.5%. It is hitting people hard. People can't afford groceries at some points nowadays. This is real America. This is what's happening. Hi Rodney, hi Catherine, hi Rochelle, hi Amber, hi Christine. It is sad. Inflation is happening. It's something that's gonna happen. It's happening all across our country. The actual back end food supply costs are going up almost 11%, even though we're only seeing a 8% or 8 to 10% increase in front end. Nearly 50% of the supply chain strain is stemming from the war in Ukraine. And it's really going to hit us pretty soon. I mean, from last month, we were at 9% increase. This month, we're at a 10% increase. Next month, what's it going to be? A 15, 20% increase? And that's not it. The global food crisis will be one of affordability rather than supply. Of course, as fertilizers and everything else become more expensive, the traditional position of trading in the breadbasket imports of the world, more than 55% of Ukraine's land is farmable, and it has some of the most productive soil in the world. Ukraine produces about 4% of the global corn supply and 7% of barley, 31% of sunflower oil, which we're already seeing shortages around the world. This is going to be a huge impact. Russia, of course, is no longer in trading of food supply. So we're talking at least 33% of the world's food supply not on the market. And of course, countries like the U.S. that rely heavily on Russian fertilizers are being impacted by this. We're giving them weapons at no cost, Ukraine. We'll get to that in a minute. But this food supply issue is not going to be settled anytime soon. Agricultural markets are dealing with sustainable reduction in crop supplies due to weather-related problems, mainly due to droughts and weather-related shock, which can be rather large. The U.S. Corn Belt is experiencing one of the worst droughts in the last century. Corn production was reduced by over 1.6 billion bushels compared to the previous year. This represents 4% of the global corn supply. At the point where Biden wants to increase E15 fuel, everything he wants to move to E15, which will cause an upward spike in corn prices as that alone, causing a more widespread food crisis as reserve stocks are drawn down. Reshuffling and, of course, an acreage expansion fairly quickly will help, but the problem there lies fertilizer. It is a big problem. Droughts, lack of fertilizer is going to spell disasters here in the United States. It's the Corn Belt in April and May. Once, of course, the war started, we will see it easily splitting into spring planting season. Several affecting the ability of Ukraine farmers to get their crops on the ground. The fear was a little, even none at that point. But now we know spring crops are not going in the ground. It's an obstacle not just Ukraine is going to be facing, but the world is going to be facing at this point. And food is one of the most important boundaries. Baby formula is in short supply, and that's just the beginning. Of course, mortgage rates top 5% for the first time in decades already. The interest rate of a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage hit a 10-year high of 5% today. Continues steep inclines, and it's slated to be well above that in the next 3 to 4 months, as the Fed planned a 0.5% increase next month alone. It's up nearly 3% from a year ago today. Mortgage Administration Freddie Mac said the last time 30-year mortgage rates hit 5% was back in February 2011. 15-year fixed rates are averaging 4.1% this week, up from 3.9% last week, and up from 2.35% a year ago. This week, mortgage rates averaged more than 5% for the first time over a decade. As Americans contend with historically high inflation, combined with rising mortgage rates, elevated home prices, tightening of inventory, and making the pursuit of a home ownership the most expensive in a generation. Adjustable rate mortgages has also spiked, with 5-year standards Treasury index mortgaging over averages 3.69% right now, up from 2.8% last year. That's a full percentage point people are paying on mortgages that they didn't know they were going to be stuck with. That's right now. Another 0.5% being added on next month. The result of a spiking rates is the mortgage market is experiencing a dip of activity, according to the information from the Mortgage Bankers Association trade group. Potential homeowners are reconsidering buying houses and investing in real estate. Mortgage Market Index shows loan application volumes decreased by over 2% compared to last week. Home refinance applications dipped 5% this week. We're down 62% compared to the previous year. The rapid rate increase caused by a much more rapid pace of rate hikes, balance sheet reductions from the Federal Reserve in response to the booming job market, supposedly, and the inflation being at a 40-year high. Economists and everybody else are saying the jump in the mortgage rates will slow the housing market and further reduce refinance demands throughout the rest of this year. Higher home prices and rates, as well as ongoing supply constraints, now expected to lead in an annual decline in existing home sales for the first time ever. America is facing an idea that nobody can prepare for. It's a hard time coming and a hard time here already. As people with variable rate mortgages can be easily looking at another 5% of interest increase by the end of the year. As dramatic as that may sound. If you guys want to call in and have a conversation about mortgage rates, if you're on a variable rate mortgage and how it'll affect you, please do, because it's important for people to understand. Important for people to understand how it's going to affect the people that it's going to affect the most. And the U.S. really doesn't seem to care. Malware, of course, was found today, announced today that it was found on the national power grid, but when it was actually found, who knows? Facebook just dipped me out, so I'm waiting for me to recover. Mortgage rates are going to go through the roof. Over 5% increase this year alone. If you have a variable rate mortgage, then you're pretty much SOL. Sad but true fact. Adjustable rate mortgages were the best of the best. It's just sad. It is sad what we are facing here in America as true Americans standing for our rights. Everything that's happening now that there's malware in the power grid, and they've officially announced it. I mean, I've been talking about this for over a month and a half now, about the malware being in the power grid, and nobody wanted to talk about it. I'm sure that's why Facebook's censoring me now, because I'm bringing it up. But malware in the power grid is a big, big problem. No update on the chemical attack yet. There hasn't been any update on whether it was chemical or not, as we're still waiting for more information to come through about that. But Putin tells Europe today, you still need Russian oil, gas, but we're turning east. As Europe can't replace all Russian gas now, Russia must build new oil and gas pipelines. It says future diversification of energy sales beyond Europe. Vladimir Putin said today that Moscow would be working to redirect its energy supply eastward as Europe tries to reduce its reliance on them, adding that European nations will not be able to ditch Russian gas immediately. Russia supplies around 40% of the EU's natural gas, and Western sanctions over what Moscow calls special military operation in Ukraine have hit energy exports by compiling and financial logistics over existing deals. While the EU debates whether to slap sanctions on Russian gas and oil, and states seek supply from elsewhere, the Kremlin has been forging closer ties with China, the world's top energy consumer, and other Asian countries. The so-called partnership from unfriendly countries coincide themselves that they won't be without Russian energy resources, including without natural gas. And this is a true statement because Saudi Arabia announced yesterday that they were going to slow production. OPEC is going to slow production. If OPEC slows production and we're trying to buy the same oil Europe is trying to buy, and the same supplies that we're trying to buy from OPEC, Europe is still trying to buy from them at the same time, we run into a huge problem. We think we have an oil price issue now. Russia may only be supplying 5%, but Russia's also supplying 40% of the EU's natural gas and oil. So when they're trying to fight for the same oil we're trying to fight for, where Europe is, from Saudi Arabia, and they're slowing their taps instead of producing more, means oil prices are going to skyrocket even further than what we see right now. And this isn't something that's going to be distant in the future. It's going to be something that happens soon. Reduction in oil output has a quick response to price. It's that. Of course, amongst the oil, Russia warns the U.S. to stop arming Ukraine today. Russia this week formally sent a diplomatic note to the United States warning that the U.S. and NATO shipments of the most sensitive weapon systems to Ukraine adds fuel to the conflict there. And that could bring unprecedented consequences. They're straight up saying it now. The diplomatic inquiry, which a copy of was released, came from the President Biden's approval to dramatically expand the range of weapons supplied to Ukraine. An $800 million package that includes 5.55 millimeter Howitzers, a serious upgrade in long-range artillery to match Russian systems, coastal defense drones, armored vehicles, as well as portable air and anti-tank weapons, millions of rounds of ammunition, and the Pentagon will strengthen military aid and weapons training for Ukrainians. The U.S. has also facilitated shipments to Ukraine of long-range air defense systems, including the Slovak shipment of Russian-made Soviet S-300 launchers. Like I was talking about before, the S-300s, we sent them there, which Ukrainian forces have already been trained on. In return, the administration announced last week the United States is deploying the Patriot missile systems to Slovakia, and it's consulting with Slovakia on a long-term replacement. The shipment of weapons of the first wave of U.S. officials would arrive in Ukraine within days, following the urgent call for Biden from Ukraine President Zelensky, as Russian forces say they are mobilizing for a major attack on eastern Ukraine, Donbas region, among the coastal strip connecting Russia's occupied Crimea to the south. Russian troops have largely withdrawn from a large part of the northern part of the country, including around the capital, Kiev. Following the locally met resistance of force, what the Russians are telling us privately is exactly what we have been told the world publicly, that their enormous amounts of assistance we have provided to Ukrainian partners proving to be extraordinarily effective, is what the senior administration official spoke about on the condition. And anonymity. He didn't want to, of course, give himself out. The State Department declined to comment on the context of what's happening, but Russian experts suggest that Moscow has brandished Western convoys entering the country as a legitimate military target, but they have not yet attacked them, but might be prepared to do so. Escalations of the war are not just on that front right now. The U.S. cannot take lightly the threat that Russia could use nuclear weapons, as Russia threatened for more nuclear forces to be used amongst Finland and other countries wanting to join NATO. Russia's threat of using tactical, low-yield nuclear weapons in Ukraine can't be taken lightly either. It's a public comment since Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24th underscores concerns of the biggest attack in European state since 1994, risking escalation of nuclear weapon usage. Earlier on Tuesday, Medvedev, deputy chairman of Russian Security Council and a close ally of Vladimir Putin, warned NATO that Moscow would deploy nuclear weapons and hypersonic missiles in King God, a Russian enclave in the heart of Europe, if Sweden and Finland joined the Atlantic Alliance. Burns spoke to Georgia Tech the potential disparity and setback dealt Putin, who has suffered heavy losses and have forced to retreat from some parts of Ukraine after failing in Kiev. For those reasons, none of us can take lightly the threat posed by the potential resorting to tactical nuclear weapons. And this is an expert on this issue, as Burns said. That being said, despite the rhetoric posture by the Kremlin about putting the world's largest nuclear arsenal on high alert, we have seen a lot of practical evidence that the kind of deployment or military disposition that would reinforce that concern. So, having seen no evidence of concern, the U.S. is just putting more stuff in, thinking, oh, it doesn't matter. It does matter. It does matter. And it can be very vital at this point of what happens next. Thank you, Cozetta, for that donation. Thank you so much, Cozetta, for that donation. We definitely appreciate it here. We appreciate all donations we do receive. Easter baskets have already gone out, but we definitely need to replace some of those funds I funded myself because I know a lot of people this year can't afford to. Yeah. Russia is moving, has moved missiles and other military equipment to Finland's border this week. They're saying that they might do it and that there's no provocation saying they're going to do it. They're already doing it. This is the problem with United States press. This is the Pentagon stating this to United States people, that they might do it. We know it's already happening. If you watch any news from outside the U.S. or if you do any research, you can see that actually happening. Happening again and again and again. It is a terrible situation. Of course, COVID, of course, is more mask mandates are coming back up now. And of course, Biden's getting his way with federal vaccine mandates. Ridiculous. That's just another thing to extend other stuff. As the CDC extends federal mask mandates for public transportation through May 3rd. One of Moscow's ships was sunk today, hours after said to be hit with Ukraine said to hit the ship with a missile strike. Whose missiles? Oh, the United States'. But big news for freedom of speech. Elon Musk offers to buy Twitter for $43 billion. This buyout would signify that the company would be transformed as a private company to allow true freedom of speech. As he said, I invested in Twitter, and as I believe the potential of the platform for a free speech around the globe, I believe free speech is socially imperative for a functioning democracy. Musk wrote on a letter he sent to Twitter's chairman. Elon Musk is offering to buy, of course, Twitter for $54.20 a share. And a filing published today saying the social media company needs to be transformed privately. A little over a week revealing the 9.1% stake in the company he already has. He believes investing in Twitter is a potential to be the platform for a free speech around the globe. As he believes free speech, of course, is the function of a democracy. Twitter shares, of course, closed down a little bit today. Tesla stocks dipped more than 3.6% on the news. But according to Musk, The company needs to go private because it can neither thrive nor serve free speech in its current state. It's offering, of course, a premium 54% over the day before, 34% over the day before. Sorry. It's just ridiculous. He's doing something that needs to be done. He is trying to make free speech free again. No, he truly wants freedom of speech. The only thing he doesn't think is appropriate in speech is threatening of direct violence. I've read his whole thing, and believe me, I don't like Musk. I'm gonna tell you guys right now, I think he is the Antichrist, and that's just my opinion. But I think True Social is still going. It's still going to become a thing. It's still working on becoming full going capacity. Of course, as you join True Social, please join Real News Live over there. But a lot of stuff is going on with True Social. There's a lot of people being added daily, and a lot of data, a lot of servers having to be added constantly. But Twitter's already set up to be a full platform. Cali's trying to pass it. It's ridiculous. How can you pass a bill that makes it illegal to speak out against the government? You're not going to be able to get on until your number is called on True Social. Yeah, don't. Your number is the number that you got assigned in the beginning. They're not. The numbers aren't lowering. Gabby, I'm going to tell you guys that right now. There's been other problems with water supply. I don't know what about Cobra Venom and water supplies over there, but definitely believe there's something behind Musk. You gotta think Musk came from nowhere a couple of years ago to basically being the world's power, pushing governments to move faster, do more, move to new outer state or out of outer space, pushing for more freedom of speech. As we know, he's an atheist. It's not a question. Just a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. The U.S. is, of course, still investigating the probe of chemical weapon use in Ukraine. And if that comes true, this could be a big, big problem. Chemical weapons were used. Because we know right now the UK, Poland, and the US are all ready to go in if chemical weapons or nuclear weapons are used in Ukraine. So this could be a very bad, very, very bad thing as we move forward and watch what's happening out there. I appreciate you guys joining me. I will be live tomorrow night at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time once again. Give you guys up to date on what's really happening out there. Facts without the fiction. The truth without the lies. God bless you guys. God bless America. Stand tall and stand true. See you tomorrow.